and 2 daughters. I am 2 years younger than Mr. Yoho's youngest daughter. I am someone's daughter, too. My father, thankfully, is not alive to see how Mr. Yoho treated his daughter. My mother got to see Mr. Yoho's disrespect on the floor of this house towards me on television. And I am here because I have to show my parents that I am their daughter and that they did not raise me to accept abuse from men. Now, what I am here to say is that this harm that Mr. Yoho tried to levy against me was not just an incident directed at me. But when you do that to any woman, what Mr. Yoho did was give permission to other men to do that to his daughters. In using that language in front of the press, he gave permission to use that language against his wife, his daughters, women in his community. And I am here to stand up to say that is not acceptable. I do not care what your views are. It does not matter how much I disagree or how much it incenses me or how much I feel that people are dehumanizing others. I will not do that myself. I will not allow people to change and create hatred in our hearts. And so what I believe is that having a daughter does not make a man decent. Having a wife does not make a decent man. Treating people with dignity and respect makes a decent man. And when a decent man messes up, as we all are bound to do, he tries his best and does apologize. Not to save face, not to win a vote. He apologizes genuinely to repair and acknowledge the harm done so that we can all move on. Lastly, what I want to express to Mr. Yoho is gratitude. I want to thank him for showing the world that you can be a powerful man and accost women. You can have daughters and accost women without remorse. You can be married and accost women. You can take photos and project an image to the world of being a family man and accost women without remorse and with a sense of impunity. It happens every day in this country. It happened here on the steps of our nation's capital. It happens when individuals who hold the highest office in this land admit to hurting women and using this language against all of us. But once again, I thank my colleagues for joining us today. I will reserve the hour of my time, and I will yield to my colleague, Representative Jayapal of Washington. Thank you.
Madam Speaker, that was brilliance, grace, intelligence, and complete dedication to what justice, equality, and dignity in the United States looks like. That is our colleague, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and we are so grateful to her for her voice. What my colleague from Florida did was unacceptable. It was violent, it was sexist, and I do believe he needs to apologize, not because it's going to make our colleague, Ms. Ocasio-Cortez, feel any better, but because he too needs to learn what unacceptable behavior looks like and rise to the level of the office that he has been elected to. It does not dignify not just him, but the 750,000 people that he represents. And I thought, Madam Speaker, that it would be good to review for my colleagues a little bit of the history of the word that was used. The word that begins with a B that's 5 letters and that rhymes with which. That word. From 1915 to 1930, Madam Speaker, that word suddenly took off in usage, in newspaper reports and articles. And you know why? Because in 1920, this body gave women the right to vote. And that was just a little too much power for too many men across the country. And so all of a sudden, that word rose in prominence because God forbid that women would have the right to vote, that we would have power in this body, that we would have power anywhere in this country. God forbid that women would actually have a voice to speak out on issues that mattered and be the arbiters of what is fair and right and spoken with dignity and truism. And so that is when that word started to take off. Now, I want to be clear that this violent language is about power. It is about power. It's about exerting power. It's about wielding power over people. It is about fear of people who may well be smarter than you, harder working than you, and more dedicated to achieving justice than you. It just may be that. It may be that fear. It is about diminishing and disrespecting when you have no other tools to do so. And it's not new. Madam Speaker, you were right here managing time on this floor when I, as a new member of Congress, was told by one of my Republican colleagues that I was a young lady and I didn't know a damn thing about what I was talking about. You were right here managing the time for our side, and you helped me through that moment. Thank you. And I did get an apology on this floor from my colleague across the aisle. I was also told in Judiciary Committee to learn how to read by another one of my members across the aisle. These are the things that happen to us all the time. These are not jokes. They're not little things, not because they hurt us. We are way too strong for that. But because they say something about the caliber of person that is here in the United States Congress. Do you know, Madam Speaker, out of the 11,000 people that have ever served in the United States Congress, there are only 79 of us women of color who have ever served in this body. And yes, we bring a new voice. And so I say to my colleague, Representative Ocasio-Cortez, thank you for your grace and for your brilliance and for your dignity. And to everybody that is out there watching us, and to our colleagues across the aisle, let me say this. We are not going away. There are going to be more of us here. There is going to be more power in the hands of women across this country. And we are going to continue to speak up. We are going to continue to say, Madam Speaker. We are going to continue to have a voice for people so that everyday working people, our sons, our daughters, and our mothers, and our wives across the country understand that somebody is standing up for them. And so, Madam Speaker, I believe Mr. Yoho should apologize. I've been on a trip with him across the globe. I never thought I would hear this kind of language from him. I really didn't. And I'm stunned, and yet at the same time, it's a pattern, and it's an old pattern. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank my colleague.
Thank you, Representative Jayapal, and thank you in giving the context of how these words and this language have always been levied towards the ascent of women and women who are ascending in power. I now yield to another phenomenal leader from my own home state of New York, Representative Nydia Velázquez.
My friends, at times like this, it will benefit us all to remember what the word Congress actually means. Congress means a coming together. That is the entire point of this institution. People from different regions of the country, with varying political views, individuals of different backgrounds, ethnicities, sexual orientations, and yes, genders, come together to solve problems on behalf of the American people who elect us. That is where the word Congress originates from, a coming together. We will frequently disagree, heatedly. We argue on this floor and in committee hearings and meetings. We may even disagree on the steps of the Capitol. However, let us disagree agreeably. The words being discussed today did not live up to those ideals. And the gentleman must say that he is sorry. He must apologize. It is not to apologize to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. He must apologize to his wife, to his daughters, to women in this country. Today, our political discourse is too often infected with an anger and a malice unbecoming of our democratic institutions. As elected officials, we are expected to do better, to act as an example of how we can debate passionately, but treat one another with compassion, dignity, and respect. It saddens me that the words that we are discussing today failed to live up to that standard. For those reasons, Madam Speaker, I stand with my friend from New York in condemning the remarks that were made. I ask all of us to do better. We must do better. And I yield back.
And I'd also like to thank Representative Velasquez for her precedent and her leadership as well. Before I was a young Puerto Rican woman upending an incumbent, Nidia Velasquez was as well. And every single one of us as women have to stand on the shoulders and the efforts made by other women who had to fight hatred, fight patriarchy, fight hateful men in order to simply exist in bodies like this. And so I'm also like to thank not only Representative Velasquez, but Representative Lawrence, who is a leader in the Women's Caucus, ensuring that others and other women who will walk through these doors, not just today, but in generations to come, continue to be protected and amplified. And I yield to Ms. Lawrence.
I stand here today in support of women. I stand here today condemning the words of, unfortunately, a colleague of mine. I want to reflect on history. The first African-American woman was elected in 1968, the first Hispanic woman in 1989. Ladies and gentlemen, we are here to stay. This year is the 100th year that women have the right to vote. For far too long, women and people of color have been subjected to being mistreated, humiliated, and trying desperately with words to minimize us. Women of color have traditionally been excluded from the halls of Congress. But I'm here today saying in a Congress where we have the largest number of diversity in women in the history of this Congress, our diversity is our strength and our unity is our power. You will see today speakers coming to this mic. Yes, we're standing up because of the words of one member, but I'm standing here today of generations of assaults, generations of abuse, and stand here proud as a survivor. Our constituents expect leadership, not schoolyard bullying from their elected colleagues. Almost 100 years after the ratification of the 19th Amendment to Congress, to the Constitution, and now at the most diverse that our body has ever been, this is a time we should be celebrating each other, thanking God that we had the opportunity to serve with legends like John Lewis. But instead, we're trying to roll back the clock with behavior that's unacceptable. I'm the little black girl from the east side of Detroit who was raised by a woman who was a grandchild of an emancipated slave. I'm not scared of you. I will call you out, and I demand respect, and I will respect you. And I yield back.
Thank you. Thank you to my colleague from Michigan, Representative Lawrence. And as I had indicated earlier, that having a daughter does not make a decent man. Having a wife does not make a decent man. But treating people with dignity and respect makes a decent man. And I'm incredibly thankful to have the honor and privilege to serve with decent men in this body each and every day. And it is an honor, and I am thankful to serve with Representative Al Green, who is a sterling example of such a decent man, and I yield to him.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, I thank you for this opportunity. Ms. Ocasio-Cortez, I thank you. Madam Speaker, I'm 72 years old. I have no children. But if I had a daughter,